What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, it's going to be a little bit different because I had an interview recently with a paralegal student. They reached out to me through LinkedIn and said they had an assignment and they needed to interview a paralegal for this assignment and presentation, and he wanted to know if I was available. And I get this question a lot through LinkedIn, through Instagram, through Facebook, and I want to do as many of these as I possibly can, but I just don't have the time to do them. It is something free that I do for paralegal students. So I went ahead and I did this interview and I said, hey, can I go ahead and film this for my YouTube channel? And he gave me permission to do so. And I was so thrilled that he did that. And then after we were done with our fantastic conversation, I found out that my Zoom did not record the video and it was audio only. So I wasn't really happy about that, but I wanted to go ahead and make sure that you were part of that conversation anyway, because it was a fantastic conversation. There was so much that we had to talk about. And so today's video is really just audio. So kick back, have your headphones on, maybe grab some popcorn, do something in the background, and think of this more as an audible. So without further ado, let's dive into things today.
Perfect. So I just wanted to kind of you to introduce yourself a little bit, your company, maybe give yourself a little plug, just kind of discuss where you're at in the legal field and kind of, maybe discuss your career path and how you become a freelance and your Aero consulting business, and just kind of give us a little background about you.
A little bit of background. Okay. So I came into this industry really by accident, but I originally went to a business college to be a certified clinical medical assistant, which gave me a great medical background, medical terminology background for being a personal injury paralegal, which is what I ended up sort of going into as injury type cases. But I had to make a lot of sacrifices in the beginning to get there. I just got a call from a girlfriend who said our receptionist just walked out. And I was looking for a job inside of an office, and it was really difficult to get my foot in the door because nobody wanted to give me an opportunity, because all I had was experience working as like a PetSmart at cashier or a hostess at a restaurant, things like that. While I had this business, education, people were like, you have to have experience. So I finally found someone who was willing to give me a break, but he was like, I will only pay you $1,000 per month. And that was gross. That wasn't net. And so I said, okay, I'm willing to do that. And I just busted my butt totally. And I would, learn one thing and go on to the other, and learn one thing and go on to the other. And then I got to the point where I started to ask the paralegals and legal assistants, is there anything that I can do to help you? And so they started to give me some work, and then a legal assistant in personal injury. So sorry for my dog in the background.
It's okay.
I have a Great Dane. A legal assistant had been let go. Okay. And I went to the partner and I said, I would love an opportunity to just prove myself. Can you put me on as a probational basis for 2 weeks? And he really hummed back and forth about it and said, okay, decided to say, file clerk, you're responsible for the phones too. Misty, go ahead and move upstairs, be a legal assistant, show me what you got. And I did. And he ended up giving me a raise at the end of that 2 weeks, said, you proved it to me, keep going. And so I stayed there for as long as I needed to. But I think, the more that I started to work in different areas of law, I started to find where I was gravitating towards, and cases that I found true passion in, and people that I really wanted to work with and around. And, I explored my horizons there, and I went and worked for small solo practitioners where I wore all the hats and learned so many amazing things. And then I worked for big, huge corporate law firms in the Sears Tower, being hot child in the city, and got my feel of that, and figured out I hated it. I hated having a 1,700 per year billable quota. And so it's like, we really got to treat our career as a business. We're the brand, and we're providing this service. And I saw paralegals. I met some paralegals who were working from home, starting, I think, around in 2010, and I was like, oh, goals. Career goals right there. And so I kind of started to strategically plan things that way. And then I went to Microsoft 365 and I sort of developed that case management system before the pandemic hit. It was just a Tuesday for us, but I had gotten to that point where I was able to truly fly solo on my own. I had networked really well to that point. And I had gained enough skills to that point inside the office, outside of the office, and on my own in technology that really catapulted me to the position of opening my own company.
Okay.
And so here I am today. And I have this coaching business, and I have this Microsoft 365 stuff that I also do, almost 2 companies that I run. And I think where I found my new passion in the legal industry is empowering the future paralegals coming into this industry. We really realize, in a lot of our paralegal associations and our groups and stuff, that we weren't prepared through the education process for that first time job. We weren't exposed to certain technology that we were faced with learning once we got on the job, or that we were prepared to talk about during the interviewing process. And so I think that's where I found my new passion in the legal industry, is just really empowerment in the future of our industry, and hopefully being the solution to the justice gap.
That's a big point. The justice gap is, I've already seen it in family law. Family law kind of encompasses criminal, encompasses bankruptcy, encompasses probate. So I've seen, I've only been there at my firm that I've been doing for 3 months, and I've kind of seen it all already. And then I'm also in a criminal litigation class currently, and we're discussing criminal justice. And
absolutely.
And I used to be in hospitality. And I did that for about 15 years. And then coming into being able to do the paralegal studies program, I found my experience with computers and processing systems, it's all transferable, which is something that's been really cool to me. So you kind of touched on a lot of the questions I had, honestly, but it seemed like, no, that's good. That's a good thing. But no, it seemed like with your consulting, with going, remote, you guys were ahead of the curve when the pandemic hit. So that didn't really affect you, right? I mean, you guys, it was kind of like you said, it was a Tuesday, right?
It was just like a Tuesday. I think, as for us legal professionals, as a byproduct of our industry, we're supposed to be looking 5 steps ahead anyway. And I am not one of those people who's going to sit back and wait for it to happen before I fix it. I'm one of those people who wants to get ahead of it before it happens. And so that's really what I started, doing with the people in my law firm, saying, we can cut out so many processes if we stop paper signing things and we start digitally signing things, and just kind of slowly migrating to that point where we went completely paperless and then went completely virtual. And then the pandemic happened. But, here in Central Oklahoma, which is where I am at, the unemployment computer system completely broke because they were running a server from 2003. And I mean, my goodness. And why? Right. And so many law firms I saw really were brought to their knees during the pandemic because they didn't plan ahead for things like this. And so I think as legal industry professionals, it's our job to really look those 5 steps ahead always and make sure that we're staying ahead of the chaos.
Yeah, definitely. My attorney, she kind of has a balance. She has a good outline of, her e-filing system, and she also likes to have her papers too. So I feel like, some firms are kind of all in on it. Some firms are still, I've talked to some old school attorneys that are my professors that are like, I hate e-filing. I hate Zoom court. I can't do it, so it's kind of 2 ends of the spectrum. And one of my professors actually told me the law field is sometimes a little bit behind on technology, and they're reluctant to get ahead. So it's eventually they'll see that it works. And I feel like the pandemic could be a blessing in disguise in that way for legal professionals, because in my area, in the Chicago area, I see more remote work from home, legal assistant, everything related, and so, and some people are even, that's a requisite in order to be able to work for someone at this point, being able to have that flexibility. So it's just interesting to see how it's all played out. And then, like I said, I discovered you about 6 months ago, just because I was looking at freelancing and your video popped up. So I'm like, this is awesome, Now,
yeah, I think, specifically for, your area and being in the Chicagoland area, the pandemic definitely exposed a lot of weaknesses for law firms. If you had any, they were exposed during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what people also learned is that it cost a lot of money to fill a seat in a piece of real estate in downtown Chicago and what we call the Loop.
Right.
It also costs a lot of money to commute into cities, like that. You pay for parking, you pay for a train, you'll probably pay for a bus or a cab if you're not within walking distance.
Right.
And so firms are having to pay a lot of money for people to just work there because they know they have to pay them to commute. Mm-hmm. And I think this pandemic shed some amazing light on the fact that we can be productive individuals outside of the office as much as we were inside of the office, as long as you empower us to do our jobs.
Right. And that's the key point, is getting that empowerment, though, because some people, like I said, they're reluctant, though, those
they
old
are,
school,
they're reluctant.
It's tough.
And I think that was a huge game changer for me in the last firm that I, worked for before I completely started my company and went out on my own, was that I was always empowered with the technology that I needed to do my job. Mm-hmm. Because if I wasn't, then it was going to take me twice as long to do my job. Mm-hmm. So it was just best that I have the tools right away, get the job done right the first time, and move on to the next one. And so I think that is something else that we're seeing, especially, with a little bit older attorneys. They know that they're being forced into this technology now, but you don't have to be forced into it. You can baby step into it. And that's something that I teach with the Microsoft 365 stuff, is you don't have to go all in. You can baby step into it to where you're comfortable. And once you're comfortable in that area, then bring something else on in the environment and start to grow. But this has to be a never-ending learning field. There's a reason why we're constantly absorbing information through either CLEs or conferences or YouTube. Because we are constantly evolving in this field. But, going back to the justice gap, we need to absorb everything that we can from the environments that we are in, so that when, your state finally gets to that point where they are allowing the limited license technicians or going through a program like that, you're ready for it and you're ready to answer the call to help that justice gap.
Right. And my litigation teacher actually was saying within probably 10 years in Illinois, that's going to be a normal thing, is the LLP limited something practitioner, licensed practitioner, I believe it is what they're working on. And there's actually a circuit in Illinois, in Southern Illinois, where they're kind of toying with that idea and kind of have a couple people lined up through a certain education system to do that. So it seems like that's where it's headed, and you're right on the money to say, you have to be prepared for it. To kind of speak to that really quick, what do you think some good characteristics that a person needs in order to be a successful paralegal, whether it be freelance or in a law firm,
I think it's funny that you asked me that question today, because I lost so much sleep last night over a message I got from LinkedIn yesterday from a person. She asked me about what are the things that she needed to really look at herself in terms of making sure she was thriving as a paralegal. She had been a paralegal for less than a year. She just graduated last August. And so, I wasn't going to give her any sort of profoundness through a LinkedIn, message. But what I did give her was that she really needed to take a look at technology. She really needed to look at, cloud computing, digital signature products, Adobe Acrobat Pro, e-discovery. It's really a lot about technology now. We are living in a digital world. We are being forced into it. And with Windows 11, they're forcing us into Microsoft 365 products. So, but her response to me was unfollowed. So
I guess that's an appreciative response.
and she's an advanced certified paralegal per her LinkedIn profile. And I was like, oh my God, that gave me a little bit of weepy eyed right there, because I was like, one of the things that I found by talking to a lot of new paralegals, and one of the things that I'll be talking about over the next 2 months, I've been booked in different conferences, is about bridging the gap. And the fact that we need to bridge that gap and focus in technology and practical solutions to being a practical paralegal once we, get to on the job. And so for me, I think that there's a lot that we get as part of that education program in terms of writing and research and different areas of law and things like that. But what we're not getting are lessons in e-discovery. What we're not getting is how to secure our technology once we get to the law firm. We're not, getting that sort of information on how to be an expert in Adobe Acrobat Pro, which I use daily in my day-to-day processes. And we're not being taught the practical industrial line of litigation and where we belong in it. We're not being taught how to work with attorneys, just like attorneys aren't taught how to work with us. And those are the things that we need to learn to bridge the gap and make sure that we're fully prepared for having that job, there in the office, but also being disciplined enough on our own to be able to take it on our own.
Yeah. And to speak to that, my courses we have an e-discovery certificate that we have to earn.
Yes, good.
As well as, law office tools, and it's through the NSLT. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yes, I've had Doug Lusk on my show here before, and we've talked a lot about his program, and I know he's going to be probably updating his Microsoft 365 stuff pretty soon. But I wish, more paralegal programs would integrate technology pieces like that, like yours did. There are so many who don't. And so once they start to look for a job, there are all these soft skills, but they're really lacking on those technical skills because they haven't taken upon themselves to broaden those horizons. Like for you, where you're at in, Illinois, you have Odyssey being the main e-filing platform for the Northern Chicago area. But there are so many paralegals who don't have that on their resume. They don't know how to e-file, that are new paralegals, because they've never done it before. And I'm like, well, have you looked at Cook County's e-filing training? Because they offer it for free. Have you signed up for that training course? They're like, oh no, I didn't even know that existed. Yeah. Well, you got to take it upon yourself to get that information, because your college certainly isn't going to teach it to you. Right.
And that's where it speaks to like just kind of putting into it what you want out of it at that point,
That's right.
You have to keep learning yourself. You're only going to learn so much. So that's why for me, especially I'm in a torts class now, I do a case brief a week. On tort law, just learning my IRAC and just honing my skills. I have long-term goals of law school, but for now I'm trying to, getting my feet wet a little bit in the paralegal field. So yeah.
And that's great. That's great. And it will really help you once you, if you do move on to go to law school, it's really going to help you in your L2. That's real when having that paralegal background really starts to work for you. But, something that I did throughout my paralegal career is I always had mentors. I always had people that I looked up to and that really helped shape my career. And all but one of them have been attorneys.
Oh, that's impressive.
Because we need to think like attorneys too. They go to law school really to learn how to think differently and think ahead and close loopholes and things like that. And I think that going back to that justice gap, if we're supposed to raise the bar ourselves and be able to do that, then we should probably be mentoring under attorneys, just like nurse practitioners mentor under medical doctors, physicians. They have collaboration agreements with them for a reason, because those are their mentors. Those are the people that, they learn from and look up to and things like that. And I think for us as paralegals and attorneys relationship, it should be the same way.
Definitely. So quick question about LinkedIn. How important do you think LinkedIn is for a paralegal? Because I'm finding it extremely helpful. It landed me this interview, and just networking with classmates and, even using it a little bit on a social side too. I see some funny memes from a couple litigation, people that are, I don't know, it's just really funny on there. So how important do you think it is professionally and for a mental break for 10 minutes too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have this love-hate relationship with social media, no matter what. I think it also kind of has to do
It's our lives though.
It is our lives. I think it also has to do with something, the fact that I'm almost 42 years old and, I didn't have social media all that much, growing up for certain. But I think whether it is LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or Clubhouse or Twitter, I think networking is vitally important to the legal industry. No, there's a saying that we have in the South, because I lived in North Carolina for a while. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And the legal industry is actually pretty small, where, a lot of people would say, oh my God, it's saturated. It's actually pretty small, and they all talk to one another, and networking is very important. So I think LinkedIn is a really great platform to do that in terms of this professional level and sort of this humorous level. I am seeing that now too, but I do see a lot of attorneys pushing back against that, saying, let's keep it professional. But I think regardless of what platform you're on, the importance of networking and building those relationships really helps in the long term in your career. It certainly has helped with mine. I mean, there are attorneys who I know who now are willing to give me testimonials and what can I do? And can I submit this to an association? Would you like to speak for these people? I just got now nominated for the NALA's Founder Award. Awesome. And so, networking is what makes those things happen. And so I think no matter where you're doing it, it's just important that you do it. Having said that, I think with social media, you also have to look as a person on where you lie in terms of your values. There are a lot of people who are pulling back from Facebook and Instagram because they're saying that company doesn't align with my principles and values anymore. And so because of that, I'm going to pull out. LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. I think that's a fabulous platform. So I don't see people pulling out of that one anytime soon. But regardless, networking is vitally important in this industry. Definitely.
Sorry, my phone's going off. So I wanted to ask you, so freelance versus like going into a law office. So would you recommend a paralegal? I guess it's kind of my thing too. I'm kind of debated on whether or not to go straight into freelance or continue, working versus getting the experience in a law office. And I'm leaning towards just getting my experience, getting some, documents built up and be able to have more stuff, be able to present to a potential future client if I go freelance. So just kind of maybe discuss the differences and, some pros from working as a freelance versus, a law firm office. So just kind of discuss that.
I don't know. I think that there's something to be said, for working in a law firm, and definitely when you're just starting out in your career. I think for the first 5 years, I call it the baby paralegal, just like I call it the baby attorney. And it's just because there's a reason why they call it practicing law. There's so much that you're going to absorb from other people within that time, if you working in that office, that you would otherwise never be exposed to if you were solely working outside of the office, having never been inside of an office. But also, having said that, there would be a lot of trepidation from other attorneys hiring you, knowing that you didn't have any experience with those day-to-day operations inside of a law firm. I think that there is this, I talked to another freelance paralegal recently who said that she found herself really suffering from imposter syndrome once she got out on her own. She was like, what do I have to offer? Who am I? Why, how can I be charging for my services? And it was because she was looking at so many other paralegals at that time and what they were doing and the services that they were offering and things like that. And so I tell people, if you're going to go be a freelancer, you need to start learning how to shift your mindset right now and start drawing inspiration and stop trying to copy or imitate what this person is doing. Stop trying to live up to what this person is doing and start trying to, think about, is there another way that you can approach this that might be more practical? But I learned so much from being inside that office, from the attorneys that I was mentoring under. I don't think that I would have the level of knowledge that I do as a paralegal, as a senior paralegal, had I not had so much exposure to those things inside the office. When we went into the pandemic and all the courthouses shut down, that was a huge disservice to a lot of young attorneys who relied on being in the courtroom to watch the interactions of other attorneys with the judge to really gain that experience on how to speak, how to talk to the judge, and how to communicate on that sort of level. And a lot of people also dismiss that because they're like, well, we're not trial attorneys. We're never, in there. But that was a huge disservice that those attorneys had. And so I think that there is something to be said of being in the office, and certainly being around those like-minded people who almost become an extension of your family, because heck, you spend more time with them than you do with your own family most of the times. So I don't think that people should become freelancers as soon as they become paralegals, just like I don't think attorneys who are just passing the bar should be able to form their own practices without practicing under the supervision, of another attorney. I think that's where legal malpractice lives.
Oh, yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
and I think that paralegals need to hold themselves to the same standards. If we're going to say, hey, we're the answer to the justice gap, then we can't make this a double standard. We have to be held to the same one. And we have to do that sort of apprenticeship as well. We have to make sure that, we're doing everything appropriately as we should be. So I think that there's something to be said about that. Being a freelancer, though, was very scary. I think, knowing that I'm leaving a salary position and it's completely up to me and nobody's coming to help me, nobody's there to bail me out. That was an incredibly difficult decision, but I've never been happier that I made that decision, and I've been so happy, since then. And it's nice being able to work on cases that I truly want to work on, and not just the busy work of the day to day. But that busy work of the day to day helped me to develop practical solutions to my job that I have now as a litigation paralegal.
Yeah, I definitely see that as getting that office experience. It kind of gives a foundation that you might not necessarily experience. And I feel like you could become a freelancer really good right out of school, but it's just not the most beneficial, because there are a lot of people that are go-getters, very entrepreneurial, good at selling themselves. But I don't know. I just feel like ultimately getting a good foundation, and like you said, to decrease that justice gap, you got to be able to bring a little bit more. So
you do. And, I don't think that I call it my data bank of resources. I have a huge data bank of resources. I've been filling that data bank of resources for 23 years now. And I don't think that I would have that data bank of resources had I not worked with other paralegals who, helped me develop those resources, or attorneys who gave me the idea to develop those resources, because it was things that I was ultimately helping them with. And so, I really think that there's something to be had, especially for your first 5 years of working inside that office. And unless perhaps you're in some sort of paralegal association program that you're meeting with them quite often, or you've hired a mentor that you talk with weekly. Most people don't have the time or money to be able to do those things. So you've really got to rely on what you're learning inside that job.
Right. And yeah, I'm a part of the Illinois Paralegal Association, as well as my local Lake County Bar Association. But the social events and the networking, it's few and far in between. And it's a networking tool, but it's exactly like you said. I'm not getting that one-on-one necessarily. And my name's kind of out there a little bit, but it's not the same as, I'm like that. I'm actually in this small solo practitioner firm as well, because my attorney, Marjorie, I just go to her with questions and getting her insight and just learning her mind. And the way she thought about writing this, certification of dissolution of marriage, and just seeing why she wrote it with like 2 words tweaked. And I'm like, I get it. So it's just, and I'm getting paid for that too, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So,
well,
and I'm like absorbing all of it in.
That's what paralegals need to realize as well is, when you get something back from the attorney that has a correction on it, you need to understand why that correction was made. Don't just take it for face value and go and do it and bring it back, because what's going to happen is you're probably going to do it again if you didn't understand why, that happened in the first place. So, you've got to be constantly learning and constantly absorbing this information and constantly adapting and pivoting, and being this flexible person in law. And I think that's also what makes it really hard.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely difficult.
Yeah, definitely hard to constantly be adapting and, shifting, especially when you have new administrations that come with new rules. And I mean, if you e-file in Cook County, I think had 20 administrative orders during the pandemic that they
Lake County too. We're keeping up to date with each one. Yeah. And it got confusing. It got confusing, but we got it done.
Yes, but you had to understand how to read those administrative orders and how to break down some of that confusing language, or you were going to be filing a brief that was completely incorrect. They were going to reply to all and call you out in front of everybody. And so I think that during that time as well, I saw a lot of paralegals who didn't understand how to break down the language in those sort of administrative orders. And so I worked with a lot of paralegals during that time and said, okay, what is this really asking you to do? And they would give me a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, nope, step back. I just this little piece. What is this piece asking you to do? And then go to the next one. It was like working on a math word problem. And I'm horrible at those actually. But we have to understand as paralegals, how to break that down, just like attorneys do.
Absolutely. And the other day there was for courtesy copies for this one judge we have, if it's over 15 pages, we have to deliver it. And we were at 16 and my attorney was like, just email it. And I'm like, I pulled up the administrative order that said he wanted his standing order. And she was like, oh,
that's right. In my civil litigation workshop, one of the things that I talk about is staying ahead of the e-filing rules, because, if you're 2 hours away from the courthouse that you're filing in and it's over that 15-page limit, but you have 16 pages, you can't narrow it down any further and you've got to deliver it. Then I hope you've got a messenger, or I hope you're ready to get in your car and go there. Cause if they're not going to take it by email, and certainly not by fax,
right.
And so that is part of it. You have to look ahead of those processes so that you're not stuck in that, problem right there and going to your attorney saying, I don't know what to do.
No, I was happy to bring that problem to her and be like, here's what I noticed. And she was like, oh, thank you. Like, good job, good paying attention to detail. So
yes, that's it. Good tip.
All right. So one quick question, give me one best tip for someone just starting off right out, ABA certified. What's one tip for maybe for an interview, or just like, should they internship first? Just give me I guess there should be more than one tip, but just a couple tips for everybody starting out right out of school.
Yeah. I think the one tip that I have is that start thinking to yourself right now that my career is my business. That you have to start treating this career like it's an actual business. And I'm not saying just look out for number one. Obviously we're a team when we're working in this legal industry and in a law firm, but you cannot rely on your educational loan to get you where you want to be. You have to broaden your own horizons. You have to start innovating your own practical solutions when your employers aren't empowering you with the technology that you need to do your job. You need to start thinking outside of the box of the legal industry and start coming up with practical solutions to time management and to working in a digital space. But you have to treat your career like it is a business. And nobody is going to care more about your business than what you are. And I think that this job has a tendency to really break people down mentally.
Mm,
And, only you know when that breaking point is,
right.
and so make sure that you're always checking in with yourself and that you're making sure that you're okay in a world full of chaos all around you, that you're constantly doing nothing but putting out other people's fires. Pay attention to your own fire.
Yep. Amen to that. I've already noticed in my 2 months, the first week I was there, I brought some stuff home and I was working, putting in those hours when I got home. And my wife was eventually like, can you just stop for 30 minutes?
Right.
I'm like, I don't want to, but after that first week, I cut back a little bit and stopped bringing anything home and just, did a little bit of family focusing time. And noticed I was way more productive the next day at work.
That's right.
And way more productive with school. So if I it's a little bit of a balance, but I'm kind of all in getting into this legal profession. So I'm putting in a decent amount of hours with school, with my current job. So, but that's absolutely right on. And you got to have some stuff for you too. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah, you got to have some stuff for you too. But, I think the other thing that I would say is always be kind as well. I think that this industry also is extremely competitive, clearly by nature. And there's a lot of that competitiveness that goes on inside the law firm, inside the office. People will hoard their resources and not share them because they don't want to teach somebody else how to do their job, thinking that they might get paid more than them or whatever. We're all part of the same team. We're all working for the same cause. We need to be empowering each other and sharing one another's resources, because if you, my friend, on the other side of the room go down, I go down too, because we're part of the same team.
Right.
So, let's all, raise that ship together and make sure that we're working like a fine oiled machine. People talk to me about other coaches in my industry and, how do you feel about them being a part of this industry and talking with them? And are you competitive with them? And I guess to a certain degree, but what we have to focus on as coaches and as senior paralegals is, are we empowering our future legal industry? I don't want to be, working at this job forever, but I absolutely want to pass on what I've found and what I know about this field to others. And I, tell other coaching paralegals that when they're dealing with that imposter syndrome, never discount the knowledge that you have in this industry. There is somebody out there who doesn't know what you know, who could thrive and just really take off with the information that you give them. So never discount the information that you know. Everything that you know has value in it, and it can be passed on to our future generation.
Definitely. And I've already learned with my paralegal classes, usually in the first classes, I tell everybody, if you ever want to collaborate, if you want, advice on your motion you're drawing up for your class, I love collaborating, and that's how I've gotten better. I've learned from, somebody that is getting her paralegal certificate. She's got a bachelor's, but she's been working in the law office for 3 years. So I messaged her right away. Can I collaborate and bounce things off you? We did a plea bargain discussion for my criminal litigation class, and she's a criminal litigation paralegal. So I was all about that. And she was on the other side because we did prosecutors versus defenders. It was a cool little activity, but just, it's really from what I experienced so far, it's really a collaboration, and everybody's about lifting each other up and being there for other people. So that speaks directly to, if we're going to pass that down, and then all of my professors encourage that too. So
Good.
That's good. So yeah, that's all the questions I had. So
thank you so much for joining me in today's sort of audible video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Share if you care. Get this information out there to the masses. And of course, good luck to you and all that you do, because this crazy legal industry needs an amazing paralegal just like you. All right, have an amazing day, a wonderful weekend ahead of you, and I will see you guys back here on the next one. Mwah! Bye, guys.